You're watching Worldview Tube, a Brannon House television network.
The Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Welcome. I am cleaning up a post and sending it to Thomas as I start this out. So you're seeing me multitask to the best of my ability on air and actually try to be coherent at it. So Thomas, I'm texting these to you right now. The time is on them, and that way you can match them to the time that's in the email, if that's okay. Only the times didn't go in the same order. So the first one is 10:53. The second one is 10:49, if that makes any difference, any sense to you at all. All right, let me go ahead. This is the Tamara Scott Show, where we help you live God's word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And we thank you for joining us. Thank you for following along. Those of you who come in every noonday, Monday through Friday at wvwtv.com and join us. Some of you are members of the Vault, which then not only do you get our show, the incredible guests that I'm humbled that God allows me to have. I mean, I've got lots going on, right? And to be here in studio with you every day at noon, it's a commitment. And then to find great guests and do the homework I feel like I need to do to bring those to you. Sometimes I learn right along with you, but sometimes I feel like I need to know just enough to ask the right questions. And so I try to, as my mentor told me, anybody can talk, have something to say, have something worth hearing. So that's what I try and do on this show, inform without inflaming. And I could sit here and spew, and trust me, my husband could tell you, I could chat it up for an hour and not be done. But God doesn't care about my opinion. He does care about my opinions, but my opinions don't matter. His word matters. Figuring out our way in today's world through his word is what matters. And that's what we try to do on this show. So thanks to all of you who follow along. Like I said, the Vault is there available for you too. With a great reasonable subscription, you get not only our guest, but every show on the network and Brannon House's library. His documentaries, everything that he's done for the last 36 years is available at worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. And then Thomas, our incredible producer, who stays with me, and you can tell I'm not easy to stay with, he puts some of our content on YouTube. So that way, I know some of you want to share it, and it's hard if it goes behind a paywall. This way, we're putting certain shows on YouTube. If you have something you want us to put on, let us know. Worldview Tube TV on YouTube. That's a great way for you to have these things accessible to you as well. All right. Let me welcome my guest, Steve King. Always love it when Steve King can join us. And I told him today, it's such a breeze when I have you on because I can ask you about anything and everything, and you're going to have a background and knowledge on it. So he's just such a blessing to us. He's served as Iowa as our congress member. Gosh, Congressman, I get confused on the dates. You were there till 2021. Was it?
Yes.
2000. When did you go into Congress?
2003 until 2021. So I was elected in 2002, and then I lost the primary in 2020, which could be a long story, but we don't need to go to that. Also, prior to that, I served 6 years in the Iowa Senate, and I loved working in that place. That's my favorite place to work. You knew everybody, you knew their wives, you knew their clerks and secretaries, and when you saw people talking to each other, you knew what they were saying. Not the same in Congress. It's a harder task.
We'd happily take you back in the Senate anytime. Right?
My wife said to me the other day, Steve, you need to go get a job and go to work so you can get some rest.
Probably true than that. All right. So there's a bevy of headlines I want to ask you about. And Thomas, do you have those two links that I sent to you that we could go to those and we could do those first, or no? We do. He's so good. I tell you, God has blessed me with Thomas, my producer. All right. So Congressman King, yesterday we had Eddie Andrews, representative for Iowa, come and talk to us. Okay, let's go back to that. Let's go back to the first one we had. And I've got to go to my screen and make sure I'm doing this split screen. I don't know how this is going to work today, my friends, but I'm going to try and do it both because I'm doing it from home. I just wanted to stay home today. So the first screen, and I don't know, Congressman, if you can see the screen, can you see what we're putting up?
I see the screen, yes.
Congressman King, can you see what we're putting up on the screen too?
I'm sorry, your audio is a little garbled to me, Tamara, but I
Oh,
see the screen that says from Steen campaign, David Bush is not a member of this campaign, and he filed the challenge to Andrews independently. That seems to be the only statement that's come out of the Steen campaign since this fiasco began.
and that was at 10:53, March 24th. And for those of you who are just coming in, we have 5 in a primary for governor, and one of the one of the candidates decided to challenge the other candidate on their primary, on their signatures for the petition to have enough signatures to run. All right, so Congressman King, it's not, I don't remember ever in politics in Iowa where a challenger has done this, except for maybe your race. Apparently, a challenger,
Mhm.
the primary, came after you.
Yes, I lived through that actually on two different occasions. One was in 2006, 2018. Um, I had a primary opponent. Her name was Cindy Hansen. I'd never heard of her before and really haven't heard anything outside of the campaign side from her since. But and we filed our normal documents, and we'll go out and get at least half again more signatures than required because we don't want to have to get bumped off on cutting it too close. And she filed an appeal. And so we had to then scramble, and the time was short for us too, as it has been for Eddie Andrews on this. But that was only maybe a couple of days to get organized, get a lawyer, and go down there and sit in that hearing. And her arguments were, well, we had written the name of the county onto the form for the petitions rather than had it put in print and say typed it and put it in print. Well, we did that with a lot of counties because we printed the petitions and then wrote the names in and or wrote the county names in and then distributed to those counties. That was very standard. That was her argument. So it was clear to me that she wanted to challenge our petitions, but didn't actually know why. I think the decision was made before we ever filed, and I expect that's the case here with the thing that is going on with Eddie Andrews and perhaps the Steen campaign. So we went down and defended ourselves, and in fact, the person representing me was Brenna Bird, the Attorney General now for the state of Iowa. And the second time it happened, it was actually even more curious. Cindy Hansen didn't file. She wasn't going to be on the ballot. She wasn't a player in it at all. But there were 5 primary opponents for the congressional race in 2020, and she filed against 4 of the 5 who filed. And so that we all had to go down and defend ourselves, except Randy Feenstra. She left him out for some reason. And it's always been a curious thing as to why that happened. But it sure gives me empathy for Eddie Andrews to scramble the way he did and come in with legitimate petition signatures and then have to spend actually, well, 2 or 3 days doing battle to get his name on the ballot for governor.
Right? So I'm trying to start at the beginning here, and I might have messed up already. Thomas, go to link 2 if you can. That was at 11:49. I was correct. 10:53 was correct. So that was the first statement there. So Iowa Standard did a great job on this. They let us know that Eddie had been challenged. Now, what we're not telling our viewers, and Eddie did talk about this briefly yesterday. I mean, his schedule was just, I can't imagine his days the last week. Let's go back. Over the weekend, when he was campaigning and gathering signatures, apparently a binder of signatures came up missing out of his car. Is that how you understand it, Congressman?
In fact, I understood it that the binders, it might have been several. As he described it, there were some larger sheets that were petitions and then some smaller ones. The smaller ones for about 6 or 7 counties all disappeared that were in the back seat of his car, as I understood that. And he said if they'd taken the rest of them, if they just the others had disappeared, I guess I should say, that would have been a great big problem. As it was, they had 3 days to replace all of those petitions. Now, I'm guessing that they were bound up county by county rather than all together. And he named the counties that some over my way: Carroll County, Calhoun County, Boone, Story, and then I think as far east as Jasper, all in a row, which that must have made some. I'm going to say this also to Eddie. What happened to them? He's been very careful not to make any allegations about what happened to them. He said he hasn't filed a police report yet because he wants to examine a few more things. Now, I can only look back into that and say, he may be thinking, is there any chance that somehow something happened inside his operation? He's very careful not to make allegations that can't be proven. I have my own suspicions, of course, but I wanted to say that on Hattie's behalf. But when those petitions were disappeared by whatever means and wherever they might be, they had to scramble and go to these 6 or 7 counties and get roughly 125 to 150 signatures in each one of those counties in order to be sure they could qualify as race for governor. And that's a mad scramble. I actually been through that once before too. We were, of course, a congressional race, and it takes a lot of signatures for a congressional race, not as many as governor, I don't think. But we were just, I guess I'll say I was a little complacent. It was so routine. I just figured it was all under control until we got about 2 weeks out. And then it was, ooh, we're way behind our schedule here. So it had to be all hands on deck to get that done too. So I understand with even more empathy on what Eddie had to do. He had 3 days to do what we had 2 weeks to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was very careful, as you say. I didn't even know anything was missing. He didn't talk about anything missing. And which I think a campaign would probably keep it quiet. But the strange thing was today when we heard that apparently the media knew. The media was asking him questions about it, which is interesting. It's just interesting. And maybe they were just asking if he was getting his signatures as because he was scrambling. I don't know. We won't project there. How about that? We'll just leave it at that. We did have Ron Corbin run a while ago for governor and did not get enough signatures to be on the ballot. So it does happen. Like you say, I think people just think it's going to happen and it doesn't always happen. All right. So Thomas, let's show that second post. Just come back to that for a brief moment if we can. So this was okay, is that the second one? The second one is the 11:49. They're going to suspend the hearing. Okay, is that the one? They're going to suspend the hearing on Eddie's challenge until tomorrow morning. David Bush, the objector, arrived late but didn't speak. Apparently, this man didn't know he had to speak. I don't know. And so that's where all the questions came. Who is this man? Who is he with? And the questions were, well, apparently, as you saw earlier, Steen felt like he had the Steen campaign, another primary candidate, made a comment. Let's go back to that first one again and just compare it. That first one, David Steen, from the Steen campaign, David Bush is not a member of the campaign, and he filed the challenge to Andrews independently. All right. Congressman, anything you want to say there?
Well, it's been reported in the public that David Bush has donated $5,000 to the Steen campaign. And if you go to his, I believe it's a LinkedIn page, he's got Steen team on his LinkedIn page. And so it's pretty hard to say that he's not part of the Steen team. He thinks he is anyway, and he's written a check that pretty much indicates that. So
Thomas has that on the screen right there. The Iowa Standard put that up. And that there's the report from a photo clip from that there's 5,000 right there from David Bush. If it's indeed the same David Bush, and others were looking to make sure it is. So there you go, Congressman King. It is right there. There's just not much you can hide anymore in today's world with all of the electronics and transparency.
And so with the disclaimer of the being associated with the Steen campaign, other things come back. For example, when Eddie filed his papers on that Friday night, Friday the 13th, I might add, at about 4:30 or 4:45, the last few minutes. And waiting outside the Secretary of State's office was the campaign manager and the communications director for Adam Steen. And they'd already filed well before that. So what were they doing there? And as we're told that they raised the question that we're preparing to challenge your petitions. And so that was an indication that they decided they were going to do that before Eddie ever filed. And other circumstances that I alluded to in my own experience too. And to speak to this broadly, when there's got to be some integrity in these campaigns, and you need to respect your opponents. And I see respect across most of these governor candidates that we have. We saw it this morning. But if you're going to go in and challenge their petitions, you need to have something basis to do that. have to look at the petitions and find a reason according to the law that they're not complying with the law. And to do this, it's a harassment technique, and it's an effort to take a shot in the dark. I think it's having been victimized by that, and it came out of it successfully as Eddie did. I think it's unethical to do that. I think it's chickenry to do that. And we did at one time. I talked to my campaign chairman, my youngest son, actually Jeff King, about all the years we went through all of this, and we did go in and we took copies of the petitions in one of those primary races because we had a suspicion that they were not legitimate. We looked through all of them and determined that they were, and we didn't make a case out of it, of course, and it probably never got published because we'd concluded that it was unethical and a proper filing. But in this case, there's more pushes on this too, such as the efforts that came directly from Adam Steen to ask Eddie to step back and join the Steen team, and then to let him know that they were going to challenge his petitions if he did not step down and join the Steen team. Those discussions do take place between candidates from time to time, and maybe there'll be more of them take place in this. But there's something about being an ethical discussion, a respectful ethical discussion, and then there's the part that is a threat, and then following through on the threat is what it appears to be. But I don't believe that there's not a link between David Bush and his $5,000 donation and his own announcement that he is his Steen team. That I don't believe that they're separate from the Steen campaign. And there was brought up in a discussion this morning, and I won't quote who brought it up, but he was speculating. He said, well, could the Steen campaign have gone rogue, or was Adam Steen in on this? And I've pointed out that if his campaign had gone rogue, he'd have fired him in the first 5 minutes, if for no other reason to save his own reputation and campaign. That didn't happen. And so we can follow forward with further speculations on how much involvement might have been the candidate, how much might have been the campaign chairman or the communications director or David Bush. But they sure look to be they're linked together, and it's awfully hard to peel that off. The evidence is right there before our eyes.
Well, and as we said, he'd gotten the call. The campaign met him outside the door when he dropped the petitions off before they ever reviewed them, telling him that they were going to challenge him. And I don't know if they offered him to come onto the campaign at that point. I can't remember. But
Yep.
then on the 17th, Adam Steen did apparently call him, according to the reports. They called him to tell him, if you would join us or we're going to go through your records and challenge. And then on the 18th, the campaign manager did the same on the 18th. And then immediately after that phone call, Eddie feels like he has records where there was email exchanges then between that campaign manager and the SOS. So I think that's the confusing thing. It's not that you don't challenge. It's not that you can't hold people accountable, which is kind of the whitewash that's coming over this. But then that first, if you can go back, Thomas, to that first post that says, David Bush acted alone, independently, not part of our campaign. When I think Eddie has record of the phone calls and has record of the email. Well, let's just see. We've got to go to break here, but let's see if we can get this in before we go to break. Thomas, there is the one. Okay, so let's pop over to number 7. We're going to jump ahead to number 7. If you can just show that link, and that is Eddie. Yeah, Eddie stays on the ballot. He won the challenge. There was not, they argued over someone thought a county wasn't there, but it was on the SOS page. So that's, again, you could ask yourself, did somebody else try to finag something that wasn't there? Because Congressman, I know, and candidates who have been challenged and walked away because they were challenged. They didn't fight it. And maybe they thought Eddie wouldn't fight it. I don't know. All right, so let's go to the next one real quickly. And I know we're pushing our break. Let's pop up to, I've got all the videos. I've tried to store everything we need, but let's pop up to number 11 and we'll wrap this up. Number 11. So on number 11, the Secretary of State, this is from the Iowa Standard. The Secretary of State has confirmed an hour ago that only 2 individuals were involved in the review process for Eddie Andrews' nomination petitions. Both work for the Adam Steen campaign. Earlier today, Secretary of State Paul Pate had said he had no idea where David Bush, who filed the objections to Andrews' petitions, received the petitions. The Steen campaign previously said that Bush is not a member of the campaign and filed the objection independently. However, based on what the Secretary of State's office is saying, Bush never received or reviewed Andrews' nomination petitions from the Secretary of State's office, which then Congressman would leave the only way he would have gotten them would have been some type of collaboration with the campaign.
Yes, actually, I didn't know you had this shot. I was about to bring it up from memory, but there's only one way that if those copies of those petitions were only requested by one entity, the Steen campaign, and David Bush shows up with them and says, "Here, I've got a problem with these signatures here. I think we should kick Eddie Andrews off the ballot." There's no other way that he got those copies than getting him out of from the Steen campaign. And that'll hold up, I think, under a lot of scrutiny too. So there's so many links that tie back to the Steen campaign over and over again. And I'm still curious, and I'm going to be cautious when I say this, I'm curious about how the press knew to ask the questions. And I'm curious about how the Steen campaign knew that there might have been some vulnerability about not enough petition signatures for Eddie Andrews. There was a created vulnerability because of the petitions that were I'll just say missing from the back seat of Eddie's car. You guard those things like they're gold because it's a lot of work to do it. So that message out there, I think, was held well within Eddie's campaign. How did they know that there might have been a vulnerability? That comes to my mind over and over again. And I will not paint the picture that I see in my mind today, but I think you know how I think about it.
Yep, we will be cautious here. And, again, in my role, I am neutral in my role, but as I've always said, I'll never use my role to unduly harm or hurt a candidate. But I will raise questions where I have concerns, and I will praise where credit is due. And I think we all should. I think everyone should. We should hold all of our candidates accountable. If we're not willing to do so on our side, we have no business doing so on the other side then either. So if there's explanation, we'd like to hear it. And I've invited Adam to join me on the show if he wants to give us clarification on some of this. But as you say, we will leave it there. We won't imply, we won't add. We just will leave it there where it's at right now. All right, we've got to go to our next break. We'll be right back. Congressman King, stay tuned. I need to tell you about our Bella Grace. The slender little sachet has the elixir with the collagen, astaxanthin, and cat's claw. In 2022, got an award for helping with cognitive function, and in 2023 in the sports arena for active ingredients, nutrition, and format. But the best is what we hear from so many of you. You have noticed better joint health, improved mobility, less eye strain and fatigue, helping with computer vision syndrome, visual acuity, depth perception, alleviating dry eyes, but also helping with your immunity, your stress management, endurance, less fatigue overall, not just eye fatigue, muscle recovery, mental clarity, focus, and gut health. Then there's the fun list. The firmer, smoother skin texture, fewer fine lines and wrinkles, improved skin elasticity, decreased age spots, more even skin tone, improved skin hydration, reduced oxidative stress, healthier nails, less cellulite, hair health, better sleep. Who wouldn't want any of those? Call them beauty items if you wish, but who doesn't want to feel a little bit better or more confident when you're going to present in the public square, when you're going to speak at a city council? And who just doesn't want to feel a little healthier? Maybe they're just byproducts of being healthier. More information at tamara.bellagraceglobal.com, tamara.bellagraceglobal.com. All right, Congressman King, I thank you for joining me today on the Tamara Scott Show. Shall we jump to some of the other topics?
Sure.
All right. Let's go, Thomas. Let me check my list out. Let's go to play the video at link F. This is KCCI right here in Iowa talking about a major fight in eminent domain. Do you have that one?
A major fight over pipelines, property rights, and land is coming down to the wire here at the Iowa State House. And what happens could decide who has final say over private land in Iowa. Lawmakers are debating whether companies should be able to use eminent domain to build carbon capture pipelines. Eminent domain is when a company can take private land even if the owner doesn't agree, as long as the project is public use and the owner is paid. Now, this requires some context because this is a fight that's years in the making, and it focuses on a carbon capture pipeline project here in Iowa. Supporters of the pipeline, including people in Iowa's ethanol industry, say it's necessary to open new markets for farmers and protect jobs in Iowa. But opponents, including many landowners, say taking their land against their will for this type of project is unconstitutional, and they want lawmakers to step in. At the beginning of session, the Iowa House...
We know the history. We've had the congressman on with Free Soil Foundation to talk about it quite often. I saw that, Congressman, and my first comment was, we don't need the legislators to decide this. Our founders already did. It's in the Constitution.
Right.
And the Bible's pretty clear before that. So we really don't need any more decision here. It's time for them to quit kowtowing to corporations and profits and start upholding the Constitution, their constituents, and the people they represent.
Well, of course, you're right on that, Tamara, and I've been making that case for about 5 years now on this issue. But there's been billions, and in fact, hundreds of billions of federal dollars that are dangling out in front of the oligarchs. And they want to tap into our tax dollars, and they want to bury CO2 down into the ground in North Dakota or Wyoming or wherever they can to collect $85 a metric ton to turn it into a landfill. And I wrote an article a couple of years ago. I called it a boondoggle, which seems to still fit it very, very well. And I've asked them in public hearing after public hearing, where I've challenged them multiple times over, what was wrong with the people that got in the boardroom and put their heads together and decided you were going to do this boondoggle with this 2,500 miles of CO2 pipeline connecting ethanol plants and locking down this quasi monopoly for the CO2? Where was the person at that board that said, "How are you going to build all those pipelines without eminent domain?" Don't you know what the Constitution says? Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. And by the way, the young lady that delivered that program actually did a very good job of it. We're doing battle, and I've been saying to our group, the Free Soil Foundation, we are a plaintiff in the lawsuit against the Iowa Utilities Commission and against Summit Carbon Solutions that wants to build this pipeline. And we're active in the Capitol trying to get legislation passed. We've been working in South Dakota, North Dakota, to help out there to the extent we can. And last year, the South Dakota legislature passed a bill that says, in essence, and it's a very tight, few words bill, that says there be no eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. We brought that same legislation to Iowa, and the Iowa House passed that legislation in the first full week of their activities in January. And I went down there and sat in on the debates and watched it all happen. Of course, that I've been trying to nurture that thing along, but I've been telling our people, fight every skirmish, fight every battle. And if you can't find one, go make one. We can't let up on this, because if we lose our property rights to a private company who is not a common carrier, and CO2 is not a commodity, and you can't even buy a share in Summit Carbon Solutions. That's so private, that's held in tight with just the people that they approve. We would lose all of our property rights. And to simplify it, I've been saying to people, if they can push this pipeline through the best farmland in the world using eminent domain and condemning our property against our will, and by there's a danger factor in it too. If they can do that, though, they can put a wind turbine in your backyard and they can put solar panels on your roof, and there won't be a thing you can do about it. Property rights will be blown away if they succeed in this. And so I want the legislature to, the Senate to pass the House language that's real clear, and it's an 80 to 85% issue. In fact, we saw 90% numbers in the House on a bill here a year or two ago. 90% of those voting it was 89.47 to be precise. And so, but I want the Senate to pass that. Last year there was a great big fight in the Senate. We had a bill called House File 639 that would have put an end to this too and protected property rights. But about 22 Republican senators voted no. And every one of them took an oath of office and to the oath to the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the state of Iowa and the United States. So help them God. But it means nothing to them. They wave it away and they say, well, what about the property rights of the people that want a pipeline? As if my neighbor can encroach upon my property rights here. And I remind people that until they invented the airplane, the land you own the deed to, say it's 160 acres or whatever it is, you just wherever that fence line is, you own everything all the way to heaven and everything down to hell until they invented the airplane. Then they had to regulate some of that space above us. But that's still the case with mineral rights underneath us. Almost all of them exist with the property in Iowa. And this is all under churn here because there are people that want to turn Iowa into, what shall I say, connect all the ethanol plants with a pipeline to collect the CO2 that's emitted from them and then discharge that up clear up. They wanted North Dakota. They're not going to get that. That's nearly out of the question now. But to get it out of the state, if they do that, then this expands itself into other utilities. Say, for example, data centers. Data centers need natural gas to run at least their backup generators, and then they have CO2 that'll be emitted from that, so they have to capture the CO2 that can go into the pipelines too. There's a symbiotic network here that I think is even bigger than the original idea that's been presented to us. And the permit that was a conditional permit that was issued by the Iowa Utilities Commission, and that condition said that they had to get agency approval to go through South Dakota into North Dakota and have an agency approval for a disposal site. The disposal sites have been locked down now by the Supreme Court of North Dakota, who said that your law up there that was taking the property rights of the people, called an amalgamation law, said that if 60% of the people said okay, the other 40% or it's just too bad for them. Well, that didn't hold up under the constitutional scrutiny of the North Dakota energy intense and controlled North Dakota Supreme Court. And so then in South Dakota, every entity that could speak against this did so. And there's 4 different entities, but in the end, their law banned eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. There's no way that Summit can get into South Dakota, through South Dakota, or out of South Dakota. And if they can get into North Dakota, they've got no place to go with the CO2. So this conditional permit is null, void, defunct, and cannot be complied with. And yet now they're appealing to get the Utilities Commission to amend that permit with a number of conditions that maybe they think would give them a path to get this done through Nebraska over to Wyoming. If the Utilities Commission changes the rules in the middle of the game, Summit's real rule all along for 2 or 3 years has been you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. But now they're actively engaged with all their lawyers and seeking to change the rules in the middle of the game. And all their lawyers have been real busy suing lots of people, something like 160 landowners in South Dakota alone. There have been a number of Iowans that have been dragged before the courts. They've sued the counties to sue against legacy zoning ordinances, setback ordinances that they have. I've been put on a cease and desist order by the Summit lawyers to cease and desist talking about the CO2 pipeline boondoggle. And I say, or they'll sue me. And I say, sue me. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've been through a few of those before. Maybe I should just stop for a little bit. I'm sure I didn't cover it all, but as you know, it lights me up, Tamara. And maybe we get something done in the legislature this year. But the simple thing is for the Senate to take the House language, pass it off the floor of the Senate, send it to the governor, and see this is the last legislative session for her. I think she'll sign the bill because she's going to go on a trip around the state of Iowa to more or less celebrate her term as governor. She's had some successes too, but a stain of another veto against the property rights of the people of this state will not really bring the people out to welcome her as she goes around on her tour.
All right, we've got to go to break, but you summed it up well. The Senate right now in Iowa, you can call your senator in Iowa and tell them they need to pass the House language, unadulterated, unamended, pass it as it is. I know Senate Leader Clemish wants to add his own little blemish to the bill, and we say no, 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 no. Pass it as it is from the House, get it to the governor so she can sign it. ASAP, the time is now. All right, we've got to go to break. We'll be right back.
Do you like drinking toxins that could cause cancer, inflammation, and all kinds of other autoimmune diseases? Of course you don't. Well, much of our water in America is full of toxins. That's a proven fact. WorldviewWater.net. WorldviewWater.net is your solution so that you can drink good, clean water. In fact, I give it to all my 3 fur babies, all my 3 dogs. I have one under my kitchen sink, one of these filters, as well as on my shower. WorldviewWater.net.
This is our new NutraSwish, Numi NutraSwish. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS, one of the products we offer because you all have different preferences and respond differently to different items. So this is our lavender. It's for ladies anywhere along your journey. No hormones in it, but if you're taking a hormonal supplement, you might want to check with your doctor. The blue is for anyone over the age of 18. It has glutathione, which is a antioxidant, helps with over 400 cellular functions, and it helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, one of those terms we learned after 2020, and it helps detox glyphosate. The good glutathione helps detox glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in ag chemicals or lawn chemicals, and some are very concerned about possible links to cancers, HPVs, and diabetes. But the blue bottle, the glutathione, helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, and glyphosate. Then there's the mango-colored bottle you see on your screen. Numi Neuro helps with your mind, your memory, and your focus. Now, again, after 2020, we heard something about brain fog, a term we'd not heard before. Whether it's from a virus or a vaccine, many have found relief, a little help, with Numi Neuro, the mango-colored bottle. When used with the blue bottle, it is so positive that the American Brain Council wrote about it, and it looked like an endorsement. Though we're told they don't write endorsements, it was simply a positive review of what they saw. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS, neumi.com/TTSS for the Tamara Scott Show. Why? Because we want you feeling your best. And when you use that TTSS link, you help us be our best. I just did mine while we were on the break. It's easy to do, it's pleasant tasting, and it helps detox glyphosate. So let's welcome Congressman King back to the show. Thanks for joining us. And Thomas, let's go right to the article. It's from the Capital Dispatch, which is not normally a source I would go to, but this one seems interesting, and it's probably very like something that they had in the Des Moines Register as well. So in that article, do you all see it? The counties that spray the most glyphosate have higher non-Hodgkin lymphoma rates. This is about Iowa. It was written on March 16th this year. And Congressman, I don't know where you're at on this. I know for farmers, there's some differing thoughts on this. And I know we hear differing things about glyphosate. But this report concludes that 82% of high-sprayed counties have elevated rates of lymphatic cancer. The report of Food and Water Watch argues and underscores the need to fight back on proposed pesticides, labeling policies, and overall use of pesticides. Glyphosate is commonly used in herbicides. And then if we go on down, do you want to show that map for us, Thomas? Oh, thank you so much. All right, so when I'm on my at home here, I don't have my extra monitor, but the research is showing that 60% of the counties with the highest rates of glyphosate application in the country have above average rates of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and the percentage is even higher at 71% when considering late-stage diagnosis of cancer. And I will just tell you, last week in the same phone call, we had prayer requests for two individuals, young men, young men, 20s, and one a teen with a diagnosis of Hodgkin lymphoma. I don't know what the connection was, or if there's any correlation or not, but I'm just telling you, we're hearing more and more about that issue. Counties in the top 20% for agricultural glyphosate use by non-Hodgkin lymphoma cancer incident are in this graph. So the blue is below the U.S. incidence, you at or below U.S. incident. The gold color is U.S. incident rate, but below the top 20, and the red is in the top 20 of U.S. incidence rate. So there you go. Congressman King, your thoughts on that?
Well, Tamara, I've had thoughts about this for a long time, and Marilyn and I live on this place since 1978. We're out in the country and can't see a neighbor when the corn's tasseled. So we're right in the middle of farm country, and I started out a custom bulldozer work back in 1975. So we've been all over, well, hundreds, if not thousands, of farms in that period of time. And I've watched neighbors die of cancer around the way, and some of them younger than being in good health, and then it just sneaks up on them and they're gone. And non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I can think of a case within a mile and a half of me. Pancreatic cancer, I can count three of them within a short mile, I'll say about 3 miles of me. And they were not young men, not in their 20s, like you said, but people in their early 60s or middle 60s that were in good health. And that's not that old anymore, take it from me. But so the what's the cause and the effect? Overlaying it on the map certainly says that's something we need to do a real study of. And we can't necessarily conclude that these things are related, but my living in this neighborhood tells me they surely it's absolutely worth looking at. And we have some people that want to do a study on this. I want to see it happen. We have to get at the science. And one of the things that works against it is Monsanto are the ones that invented glyphosate. And I happened to have talked to the PhD who produced that, who invented it years ago. I could tell you the long story, but we don't need to do that. So it's been with us for a long time, and Monsanto made a lot of money, and it's a worldwide product now, the glyphosate, and sold under Roundup, Monsanto's Roundup. Then Monsanto faced lawsuits in California originally, and California concluded that Roundup or glyphosate is a carcinogen. Well, in the middle of that, then Monsanto sold out to Bayer, which they call Bayer in Georgia or in Germany. It's a German company, a large German company, and they stopped producing glyphosate and selling it. They produce other products that do similar things, but they're still out there in the market all over the place, just sold as glyphosate or under some name brands, and so it's pervasive. It's gone on just a majority of the cropland in Iowa, and we've had Roundup Ready soybeans, Roundup Ready corn. They even got, I guess, Roundup Ready bluegrass. I haven't found any of that yet. But so the facts on this, I just want to tie it to this, that it makes me think about the mass murders that we've had in this country that erupted into our civilization starting about the beginning of the Second World War, maybe one a decade, to now there's several a year. And what are the common denominators of that? I want to know what kind of pharmaceuticals those mass murderers are on, but the family gets sometimes gets a check and a non-disclosure agreement. Well, you've got huge companies that are working against this, pushing legislation in the Iowa legislature that says there's hold them harmless on liability because, after all, we really need the glyphosate in order to farm. If you're producing a product that's not a carcinogen and it is one that's not dangerous to the public, you don't need to have liability protection passed by the legislature. But that's an example of the power that comes from big companies that come in and influence the legislators. That bill has not passed, as far as I know, and I sure hope it doesn't. But it's a big warning to us about the power of the large chemical companies. And then if you look into Syngenta, 100% owned by Chinese Smithfield, a Chinese company. There's just a handful of those companies, foreign companies as it's turning out to be. The vertical integration of the ag industry is awful, and it's designed, in the end, the structure of it's not for our family farms. It pushes the family farms off and lets the big corporations consolidate land ownership and the products that are going on that land, and they have a lot of political power. So I want to see studies done, and I think Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going to help us get there. It's his conviction for a longer time than it's been mine. He and I have had debates that go back a long ways, and there were times there that I thought I was right and he was wrong. And I think if I went back and reviewed that from what I know today, I'll say it here, there were times that he was right and I was wrong, Tamara.
Well, what did they say? When an honest man realizes he's in error, he either stops being in error or he ceases being honest. And you are honest, my friend. So There you go.
It's,
And
it's
it's
the easy
humility.
way.
It's right. That's the humility way, but humble, but that's the honest way. All right. So I want to come back to that article very quickly, Thomas, and just at the third paragraph below the graph we just looked at. To Congressman's point, this article says Monsanto has paid more than 11 billion in settlements, recently announced up to 7.29 billion long-term class settlement agreement to help resolve current and future claims. So I just wanted to get that is in the Capitol Dispatch. Like I said, a source that I don't normally look to, but I will say, though we don't talk about cures or treatments or anything else, this just does help. It's said to help. It's said to help the detoxing of glyphosate. You can find it at NUMMI.com/TTSS. NUMMI.com/TTSS. You help us when you help yourself. We'll be right back after this message, and then Congressman King will try to do a rapid fire to get through some of our other topics.
I'll be ready.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
As well, we have our frequency. Oh, it's not showing up on the screen there. The frequency. You can go to frequency.com/Tamara Scott, frequency.com/Tamara Scott. This is because in your soil, on your produce, a lot of the minerals that we used to have are not supposedly there. And so this is just a great way to add some of the minerals to your drink. The source, you can put it as a couple droppers in an 8-ounce drink. The Rise There is another great product that people are talking about. We're offering a lot to you because bodies respond differently. You have different preferences. Certainly don't expect you to take them all. We want you to find the one that works for you so that you can be living your best life. Frequency.com/Tamara Scott. Thank you, Thomas, for that. All right, let's go back. Let's start with insider trading. And this is a video. We'll quickly play the video at A.
Now to a mystery in the oil markets and the suspicion that some people are getting very rich by trading on inside information. In the minutes before President Trump's announcement Monday that the U.S. would postpone strikes against Iranian energy targets, traders suddenly bet hundreds of millions of dollars on oil prices falling, which is exactly what they did. To help us understand, Jill Schlesinger is here, CBS News business analyst. Jill, why does this stand out and why should people care?
Well, I think the most important thing and what stands out is that we saw a surge of trading activity. So if you look at this at 649 to 651, there's this circle there. Yeah. That's a big jump up in activity. And then soon after, we see the price of oil at the top, and then it drops by 10%, literally in minutes. 15 minutes before this non-public information is out.
So somebody might have known something a little too early.
It does appear that way. And why we care about this is that is not considered public information, and someone seems to know it. And that's illegal, Tony. I mean, that's the issue, is that this is essentially insider trading.
So is it policed? What do we do about it?
The thing about insider trading is we've known about it forever. We have so many different ways to do it. It's usually triggered by this kind of trading activity, and we get an investigation. But right now, I don't think we're going to get a big investigation. The Trump administration says light on regulation, and there's not a lot of funding for folks at any of these regulatory bodies. So I think for the people at home, it kind of feels like it's not a level playing field because this looks like it is not.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much.
Congressman, the president mentioned in his latest State of the Union he was going to do something about this, but I don't know how you do it without Congress. You were a congressman. Tell us about this.
See, when he said that in the State of the Union address, I mean, I think that actually I saw the clip of that. And we've seen people get dramatically rich in Congress But as for me, I shut down all of my money and investments wherever it was. It wasn't a lot anyway. It wasn't hard to do. And I put everything I could into the thrift savings plan, although they would let me do that, and set where that went. For 18 years, I just let it ride. So it was completely out of my mind. It wasn't the case for a good number of others who were constantly looking at ways that they could maneuver their investments. And we had one, Chris, I better not say his name. I may not get it quite right, but he was out of Buffalo, New York, and a Republican, and he was convicted and sent to the federal penitentiary for insider trading. And I remember talking to him, and he said they'll never convict me because they can't convict me for blinking or, nodding my head or not saying anything to a question. Well, they did. And he was communicating with his son who was making the trades. And so there's definitely an enforcement mechanism in place. In this one, I don't know how pervasive it is across Congress because I didn't travel in those circles. I just want to say that. But in this case, these trades are all a matter of record. And when you see the oil values, where were they, 105 or 108 dollars a barrel, drop off the table down to 90 in a matter of a 15-minute window. And so all you have to do is go look at those transactions and see who's selling, and then look into that and find out how they might have known. Put them under oath, do an investigation. That's insider trading evidence as far as I'm concerned, and it erodes the trust that we have in government, and it also it enriches people that don't deserve to be making that kind of money, and it taps into the rest of us when they're speculating with that. So I hope there is an investigation. That just looking at that chart and you see that drop off the way it did, that's enough evidence to be of insider trading. I think she concluded that in her report too. So I hope they dig into it. That'll happen more likely if the press raises the issue, and otherwise, if it just passes into the jet stream, nothing's going to happen.
I think if enough people, if enough voters make it an issue, then you just wonder if they pass legislation that looks like they're taking care of it, but they aren't, or if they're really correcting the problem. So, but it does need dealt with. It absolutely does need dealt with. All right, quickly. Kat Cammack, one of my favorite congressmen from what I know of her, gave a video. We won't take time to look at it, but she says if you're going to close down the government, TSA is not going to get paid, then you don't get paid as Congress. Is that another bill that's just going to make us look good, but never going to get passed? I think she'll get it passed.
You're going to be a little surprised at what I'm going to tell you, Tamara, but the House wanted to do that to the Senate back when I was in session. I don't remember exactly which year that was. It might have been during the 2013 shutdown, and so they brought a bill that would freeze the pay of the senators until such time as there was the government shutdown in 2013 was about 16 days long. And I remember that Trey Gowdy came to me with that proposal, and then they sent Jim Jordan. It was the other way around, I think. Jim Jordan first, then Trey Gowdy. But when they presented me with the bill and I read it, and I pointed out to them the 27th Amendment to the Constitution, which says, and I just looked it up here now, but I know it, says no law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. So they can pass the law, and they could get it signed into law, but it wouldn't take effect until January. And so I think this will be over by then. I recall that Trey Gowdy argued with me, and he said, well, when they wrote that, no law varying the compensation, what they really meant was that means you can't raise the wages. And I said, they had increase and decrease in their dictionaries along with varying. They chose vary, and that means you can't increase or decrease the pay until the next Congress. So I think it's a good messaging point, and I'm sympathetic to that messaging point, but it's not going to have any effect.
Okay, good to know. We're at 55. I don't think we have time to ask you the next question. Oh, can I very, very quickly? Schumer is fussing. Well, they've got his picture on it. I don't know if it's actually him or not. Supposedly there are perks that airlines do for congressional members, but they're wiping those out until government is not shut down anymore and TSA is back in full mode. Are those big perks? Is that something you can answer in 30 seconds?
I'd say that's just fine. They don't need to have the perks anyway. I don't remember having any. I always wanted to stand in line with everybody else so I could complain about TSA and know what I was talking about. So that's fine, and let everybody feel the pressure. This situation of not funding TSA and for the purpose of defunding ICE so they can't enforce immigration law is so outrageous. We just can't tolerate it as a country. Those tactics will destroy the United States of America if we do not defeat those tactics and if we do not follow through on enforcing immigration law. If you give up on that, if you give up on people demonstrating in the streets and it's making too much noise, then the result of that is anarchy prevails, and we are a nation that has to live by the rule of law.
Yep. So to all of you pushing a convention of states to rein in government and fiscal spending, right now people think that's defunding ICE. So think that through. Think that through. Congressman King, always love having you with us. Thank you so much to everybody out there. We tell you, live boldly, love better, laugh bigger, be encouraged, and never be complacent.